there's 60 years worth of racing here, and I don't it's like, where do you start? I mean,
Oh,
goodness
that
me.
guy there by my left front wheel, that was in qualifying for the Italian Grand Prix in 1974 in the works Ensign with Mo Nunn standing on the right hand side. But that's Nigel Bennett doing my tyre temperatures and
Ah,
pressures.
really?
Bless him, yeah. But that's how we went Formula One. One toolbox, one mechanic, Mo Nunn and me.
Wow. It's amazing, isn't it? So how did the story go that you went from F1 to sorry, F3 to F1? What was the stepping stone?
Well, the stepping stone was Formula 5000. Um, I wanted to go Formula 2 because lots of Grand Prix drivers were driving Formula 2 as well as Formula 1 at the time.
Yeah.
I thought to test my mettle against Formula 1 guys in Formula 2 was the way to go. Um, but Dempster sadly uh, wanted more racing in the UK than Europe. So it was decided that we would go into Formula 5000. And to be honest, and apologies to March Engineering, but I wanted to get a Lola T332 because it seemed to be the quickest car at the time. Bob Evans had got one, and Brian Redman had got one. Lots of the David Hobbs, they'd all had Lola 332s. Um, but I'd been driving a March at the end of 1973. I had a March 733, which was a superb little car, and I started to win some good Formula 3 races in that car. And of course, Dempster were quite close with March, so March persuaded um, Dempster to buy a new March 741 Formula One car without engine and gearbox, and put a Chevy V8 in the back to run in Formula 5000, European Formula 5000. So what we did was they didn't have the capacity to do it in the factory. So there was a guy who made the Boxer Formula 2. Was it Brian? Anyway, guy was making Formula 2 cars at Cobham Airfield in his workshop called a Boxer,
Hmm.
Boxer. And we rented space off his workshop and we had the chassis delivered down there. And Colin, bless his heart, did all the engineering and design work to put the Chevy in the back of this 741 Formula One chassis. And quite hilarious going from 120 horsepower Formula 3 car into a 500 horsepower um, Formula One car, basically built with a
Good God.
big cast iron V8 in the back.
Let's see
So
if I
there's
can
a lot of
find a
weight there.
see if
Yeah,
I
it
can
was.
find a photo of one of these. You tell me what if you see anything of what, because I don't really know where to look. I know what an F3 5000 car looks like. Is that not an F5000 there?
No, that's an Ensign Formula One
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
and testing at Silverstone. Um, I
That's
can't.
F1 as well, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a Shadow.
Yeah. You tell me if you see. Oh, that was that the F3 car? Or is
No,
that
that's the Formula Two Rolt. I won the
right?
British
Right. Okay.
Championship in. That's a DN3B. Um,
Hang on. Hang on. What have we
oh,
got
there it
here?
is. That's the 5000. So
Ah. Okay.
that's the 741 Formula One chassis with a Chevrolet. That the first Chevrolet engine we put in it had four downdraft twin choke Webers on. We eventually it wasn't quite strong enough, so we went to an Alan Smith crossover fuel injected Chevy, which was much faster. And but that was my first ever Formula 5000 race at Brands Grand Prix circuit. I qualified near the back, learning the car. Um, but eventually I overtook Ian Ashley was running fourth, I think, in the Lola. I overtook Ian. In third position at the time was Brian Redman in another Lola, and I overtook him. And I couldn't catch Peter Gethin was leading. He was in the Works Chevron, and the I finished second to Peter Gethin in my first 5,000 race, so that was a really
Mega.
good start. I finished second in my second one to David Hobbs. Suddenly, I was leading the European Championship, and things were pretty good, going pretty well until I got to Thruxton. Now, the week before Thruxton, I had a phone call from Max Mosley. Funny enough, I was sitting in the I was up. There was a lad called Mick Hill who used to race super saloons. He built amazing big V8 saloon cars, and I was sitting with him when I had this phone call, and it was in May 1974, and Hans Stuck was their works driver at the time, and he broke his thumb in an incident at Monaco. Now, in 2 weeks' time, there was a Swedish Grand Prix. So they phoned me and said, how do you fancy standing in for Hans at the Swedish Grand Prix? I mean, I was over the moon. This was going to be the achievement of my ambition. So I said, of course, I'd love to. Maybe I could drive the car first and what have you, and they were going to try and sort that out. But I had a race in that Formula 5000 at Thruxton the weekend before the Swedish Grand Prix. And I was going well. I was running second, I think, to Bob Evans in his Lola 332, and I was lapping a man called Tony Dean on the way up towards the chicane. Now, these cars were pulled probably 180 plus miles an hour up towards the chicane, and as I went past him on the right-hand side, for some reason, he drifted across, and his right front hit my left rear and
Oh
put
God.
me in a spin. And I tried to fight the car and save it, but stupidly I hung on to it too long. And as it hit the barrier, it snapped my left wrist.
Ah.
So I couldn't do the Swedish Grand Prix the following weekend. I was had to have an operation on my scaphoid, and Rainer Wiesel drove it instead of me, which was a
Ah.
shame. But that's
God.
how I basically was offered my first Formula One drive.
Mm.
And then Mo Nunn, I had been racing an Ensign before the March in Formula 3, and Mo Nunn said, would you like to drive the car? Vern Schuppen had left because the car sadly wasn't really up to the job. And I went to the Italian Grand Prix and didn't qualify. Went to the Austrian Grand Prix, didn't qualify. Went to Canada, didn't qualify. Um, and the prime reason was that every time I turned left in the car and loaded it with some G, it lost fuel pressure. So when you
Ah.
push the throttle down, the engine didn't respond initially until
Right.
till you unloaded it and the fuel pressure came back up and it would accelerate.
Right.
On top of that, Bernie Eccleston wouldn't let me have qualifying tyres. There were a few people like Tony Trimmer, myself. We were not allowed to have qualifying tyres. So it made it very difficult when there are 30 cars going for 25 places on the grid. So give Mo Nunn his due. Between Canada and America, he said, we can't go on like this. I'll redesign the whole fuel system. And he did that. And I went to Watkins Glen for the American Grand Prix in 1974, October, beginning of October. And I managed to do laps in that car doing left-hand corners without it losing fuel pressure.
Ah.
And
Okay.
out of 30, I qualified 22nd, and I qualified next to my hero, Ronnie Peterson. I was only, I think, 2/10 slower than Ronnie in his JPS Lotus 72.
Wow.
And to be honest, it was a bit surreal.
Yeah.
How could I be going the same. I mean, Ronnie obviously had a bad quality because he was down in 21st position or so, and I was 22nd. But I was in front of Graham Hill and uh, Bram Biller, Tim Schenken, all these other people um, who didn't even get in the race, which was great. I mean, I was next to Graham Hill on the grid, but some of the other guys, the Works Marches, didn't qualify. Tim Schenken in the Works Lotus didn't qualify. So I was obviously driving pretty well when the
Yeah.
car was right. Um, but the
What?
ironic thing was
So I was
that the
just going to ask
grid,
what color what colors what does a car look like? I'll see if I can grab
it
it
was
on
green.
screen. I'm not sure
It
if
was
I've got.
green and had Team Ensign on it. It was that
Ah,
car that was in Italy.
right.
But there might be a picture there in Watkins Glen. I don't know.
Ah, I don't know. It'll be in your book anyway. If you don't
Yeah,
see it on
it is
screen
in the
here.
book.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying the ironic thing.
The ironic thing was that, I must tell you about my fastest lap because we couldn't have qualifying tyres. We had to qualify in race tyres, whereas everybody else had quali tyres. Um, I set off with the brand new set of race tyres on the car and scrubbed them in a bit on the warm up lap and then set off on what I hope would be a really good lap. But every time I looked in the mirror, I had Jody Scheckter behind me, in his Works Tyrrell. And Jody was quite an aggressive character. Um, there was a book around at the time called Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and it was a book about a colony of seagulls, and the most aggressive seagull, his name was Fletcher. And not to his face, and I apologise to you, Jody, if you watch this, but we all called him Fletcher. So if anybody said, "Are you looking for Jody?" they'd come up and say, "How are you? Have you seen Fletcher anywhere?" And we knew who he was talking about because he was so aggressive. So anyway, I got my head down and I thought, I can't let him by. I've got to. This is the best tyres I'm going to have. This is the lap. So I pressed on, and every time I looked in the mirror, Jody was there, and I pressed on, pressed on, and pressed on, and I finished my lap, and it put me 22nd on the grid. I was ecstatic, absolutely over the moon.
Mega.
Coming out of the showers after quali, and Ken Tyrrell came up to me and said, "Oh, Mike, Jody's looking for you," and I thought, oh, I know what's coming, and I thought, I drove my heart out. I deserve to be on this grid, and I'm not going to take any bull. So I walked down to see Jody. He was talking to somebody, so I waited. And then when he'd finished, I went up to him with my finger and I put it in his chest. "You looking for me?" Expecting him to say, "Why do you get out of my way?" or whatever. And he said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa." He said, "I just wanted to tell you how well you were making that shit ensign go." So it was a backhanded compliment, really.
Yeah, nice, nice. So
But
did you?
the ironic thing about that race was, and we'd overcome the fuel problems. The guy was raising the American flag to start the race, dropped it at that precise moment. The DFV fuel pressure relief valve gave up. So
No.
I'm sitting there at 8,000 RPM, ready to drop the clutch. It lost fuel pressure, and the engine
Oof.
basically almost stopped. As soon as I
Wow.
took my foot off the throttle, that if I just tweaked the throttle a little bit, I could get enough pressure. I lost 6 laps, I think, by poodling
Wow.
around the inside, trying to get it back to the pits. When I got it back to the pits, Mo then went and found they let the reserve, which I think was Tim Schenken, go out to join the race because I'd gone in the pits. Um, but luckily, Mo found a pressure relief valve, fitted it, and he said, "You might as well go out and get the experience." So I went out and had a dice with, bless his heart, Chris Amon, another sadly missed friend, and he was driving a BRM, and they pulled Schenken off the circuit. and so I finished, but I wasn't classified because I lost so many laps.
Yeah, it's not so many laps.
But that drive and dicing with Chris got me my BRM drive for the following year.